come on stage? Okay, I think let me start off with a recent news that related to education. Actually, just now when they were here, I did mention something. In recently, there is a case actually over in U.S. Texas A&M University. A professor flunked all his students because ChatGPT said that the work by the students are all written by ChatGPT. Now, having said that, of course, I mean, that create a lot of issues. That means educators are also using ChatGPT, but whether they are using it correctly or not is another question. That's also one of the reasons why I asked Prof. Lai at the end and how we can prepare educator to deal with such a fast-moving and evolving era. So maybe I want to hear because all of them are involved in education sector, then what's the think about how we should deal with it?
Okay. Prof, I really liked your point about all these uses of ChatGPT make my life easier, but don't necessarily make me a better teacher. So convenience is the worst drug there is. Looking for the shortcut, trying to find the easy answer. And so I think, the professor was looking for an easy way to determine how this new technology was being used by his students, and he got caught out in that. So I think that's, the problem is this technology is so easy to use. It's so convenient to use. But yeah.
Yeah, so when I saw that piece, I was wondering that the professor wasn't aware that generally language models, they can't explain their own behavior. But this is something that I guess people will get to know. It's like when web search engines first came about, most people didn't know how to use it. Nowadays there's enough knowledge, general knowledge about web search engines that most people know the general basics. So I think language models, maybe another 2, 3, 5 years, it will become more and more common about knowledge about some of these weaknesses and strengths. Yeah.
Actually, I wonder, is it possible for us to input a paragraph into ChatGPT and see, have you seen this somewhere before?
I mean, I've read studies where they try to determine, they take a piece of text, they remove the noun, and see whether they can guess correctly the noun. Because there's no way you can guess the noun without actually seeing the text. So there have been studies like that prove that a lot of Harry Potter is inside. A lot of science fiction and fantasy is inside for some reason. So I've seen a lot of studies on that, yeah.
No, it's a huge issue, right? How do you have 70 billion parameters and 1.4 trillion tokens that you've trained on. So the statistical model that relates all these things is super complicated, right? I mean, you have to tell us how complexity theory is gonna help us figure out how to pull things out. So yeah, this explainability issue seems to me a very serious one. I think what I'm more worried about is accountability, though, because what I fear is that we're getting one answer surfaced out of a soup. And I mean, Aaron's presentation was made me so happy because I could see the technology being used to identify the sources of information more precisely, right, and helping us find those sources of information. But I worry that that's not the main use case, right? That the main use case is, I want a quick answer. And so, to me, if all of the value of creating knowledge and creating these answers that authors and publishers and librarians have worked together to create a system for this, if all that system is collapsed into one window where you're looking for the answer, this is a big loss of value, and the skepticism that we have about truth claims is just going to get worse. I mean, yes, subjectivity, contestation, but in fact we have systems of contesting and getting a relative strength of search claims, and so, of truth claims. And so my fear is that this technology really, my resistance to the technology is only in this problem.
Okay, and another question, actually recently I read I listened to Bill Gates, one of the talk on Confuse Me with Bill Gates. He asked, can AI help to close the education gap? Now with this, what do you think?
Well, I think that to the extent that this is a technology which necessarily imply that, there's got to be a certain level of infrastructure being at its back, right? I mean, in this case, ChatGPT, for example, minimally, you do need internet connection, and you do need to probably at this point in time proficient in English language, etc., to be able to make you take advantage of it. And I'm not sure this is going to bridge the gap, the educational gap, considering the fact that the whole world is not necessarily at the same stage of development, definitely overall, and definitely not in terms of technological infrastructure that are put in place. I don't know. I mean, not in terms of, at least in the context of this generative AI in the form of ChatGPT is being realized. I personally don't see it as, in fact, I think this is one of the worries that I've listed. Access is going to pull many of the communities even further in terms of being able to take advantage of this new technology in education.
It's more on accessibility, one of the key issues, right? How about the others? Any
I mean,
any
about
thoughts on
equity, one of the questions, I got pushed back because I was telling librarians that we should pay more to make papers open access so that they can be read by machines. The pushback I got from some librarians is that the people who are going to benefit from such things will be Google, large companies, right? Small universities and normal people wouldn't actually benefit from open access. We are basically giving data to only the big companies that can produce such large language models. Right, so there's been pushback to say that we should pay more to make things open access just for them. Yeah.
One of the reasons that we think this could be useful there are all kinds of gaps that the technology is always, every time a new technology comes in, it's going to solve the big problems that we haven't been able to solve for such a long time. One of the things that's interesting about the AI technology is the idea of personalizing education, right? So the AI can enable you to get the content that you want that matches your learning style. But I've always had a question mark in my mind, right? Let's say we have a textbook, and that textbook is going to suit some students. They're going to, really learn from that textbook easily, but other students who have different learning predispositions will not be useful. So of course we have, let's say there are 4 different kinds of learners, right? That's one of the models out there, 4 different learning styles. So textbook is good for one. All right, so we're going to create tools that are going to be good for all 4 types. So basically we're going to have to come up with videos, say, if you're an audio-visual learner, to reproduce the same content. So in order to meet this goal of offering content in the form that is suitable for your learning style, we have to multiply the content by 4. Now, can AI do that? Well, it probably can help, but at the same time, we're eroding the economic basis for creating the content. Who's going to create all the extra content? Right now, the burden is on the teacher. You have these resources, you have to cater for all the different learning styles in your classroom, go for it. Now you have to do 4 times the work that you used to do last time. There's not more money for textbook publishers to create 4 different channels of learning. There's less money there. So I think this is one, aside from the access and equity problems, I think there is also this problem that somehow we're going to magically create all of this wonderful content to be able to suit all the different learning styles in a glorious future personalized learning that Bill Gates is, always talking about.
Yeah, okay, but one thing, for example, now talk about that, because now I remember before search engine come in, then we go to library to look for information. Actually, our learning process actually take much a longer time. Now with search engine comes in, and then we do things much faster. So what do you think? Will this new thing will help people to learn faster, or what? Because now you do a search engine, you need to read through all these links and then to understand. Now
Well,
they summarize.
I, I'm sure that human brains are evolving, right? Getting better and better, right? But I'm not sure that the speedy availability of information is necessarily a better way of quote unquote learning, right? Because I think that building up, to me, I think knowledge is being built, right? Is cumulative, and most importantly, it is something that information or that you can gather either from the textbook or from the internet has to be internalized. Your own organization in your brain as to where this information should be fitting and how it relates to some of the other information that you have learned or gathered earlier on. And that process, I don't know necessarily being shortened by the same factor as, at the rate at which information is available at this point in time. As a matter of fact, I think the speedy availability of information has even sort of softened this need to internalize the information.
Yeah, I fully agree. So knowledge is about constructing models and to really understand the data. So the faster you can get the information, the more easy you can fool yourself into thinking that you actually have knowledge of the area. So Google already made people think they're experts because they can Google and straight away read off the answer. ChatGPT is going to make it worse. Everybody will think they're experts on every subject just by asking the question from ChatGPT. Yeah.
I like the characterization of ChatGPT. Sorry, this is an all-male panel. I just wanted to point that out. So I like the characterization of ChatGPT as the ultimate mansplainer. Whether it knows the truth or not, it says it with perfect and total confidence.
Yeah, actually, I asked this question because I agree with you all, but I get the impression someone think that, yes, now the information is so readily available, and then the curriculum will speed up, everything will speed up, and then are we learning? That is an
All of us are in
important.
for the information business. We're not going to say that having more access to information more easily is a bad thing.
Well, I used to say to my students, all right, almost nothing that you learn at the university will ever be used in exactly the same form as being taught to you, okay? I can almost guarantee that, right? That would necessarily, so how are you going to be able to sort of exercise, quote unquote, the knowledge that you have gained when you're in the university? If you do not internalize it, it becomes part of you, right? It underlies the way that your neurons are actually firing whenever you are presented with a certain stimulus, right? And I think that doesn't come, at light speed as information.
Very good. Actually, I also have that understanding. I mean, with the newest technology, I think make things so fast, and then we are so easily available to get the answer. But in terms of education, I think it's a totally different things. And sometimes making mistakes is the best way to learn something, and you solve it. Yeah. So. Okay, please.
So Aaron, I really enjoyed your presentation. I learned so much. I wonder, I have this ambivalent relationship with bibliometrics because I publish in social science and humanities mostly, and we don't perform very well on the bibliometrics. Historians don't cite each other as often as psychologists. They cite historical sources, right? Original primary sources. So I'm a little skeptical of it. I noticed that in the questions you asked, there was a tendency naturally that the most highly cited sources came up to the top, But you asked about the open access advantage. Those sources were all from 2005, 2007, 2008, presumably because they have more citations. So I also worry a little bit, especially in emerging fields, in new areas, publishing and coming up with content and ideas that are generated outside the traditional centers. Are we kind of making the hierarchy of knowledge a little bit more rigid by relying on the bibliometrics to generate? I mean, even it's so much better than just relying on the mysteries of ChatGPT, but still, I do wonder if there's structural problems there. What do you think?
Bibliometrics is a whole different area, and of course, basing research assessment just on bibliometrics is a huge issue. In terms of language models, you're right. I think research is emerging that ChatGPT loves to cite, top cited journals and things like that. So the same effect is probably occurring whether using a search engine like Google Scholar, which has a bias towards highly cited papers, as well as using language models. Basically, the more the language model sees a paper, the more likely it's going to cite it, mention it, right? So the same effect will probably occur. Yeah.
Okay, I think any other question for our panel here? If no, let's thank our panel again. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.